you think about it, our master plan is our genetic code, right? And we each are super unique, even though there's 8 billion of us on the planet right now. And there's infinite variation. So within that, let's say 98% is good. And there are a couple things that maybe we all have our kryptonite, just to borrow the Superman analogy, where maybe through the course of life for most people, it never kind of surfaces, but maybe there's this combination of unique environment or diet or anything like that, where all of a sudden it exploit that weakness. And so what if you could edit that? Maybe it's the same as if it was a house, you'd replace a board. You have this incredibly fast clock speed that allows you to all of a sudden compute all these different variations and potentialities. And it would just take us forever to do that. But they can do a massive amount of pattern matching and recognition. In fact, quietly, one of the very first big AI victories last decade was this ability to begin mapping out all the proteins in the body.
And
Because
I
a
understand
protein,
that this is now being made available publicly for everyone. That's one of the wonderful things about the health and wellness community and the medical community is that some of this research is then made available. Is that correct?
yeah, it's starting to become available. It's still very limited, but where the CRISPR stuff we're not quite doing, but they're kind of like a really friendly next door neighbor, right? So for us, what we're doing is about. So I had a diagnostic company 10 years ago, and it became fairly well known. It was Wellness FX, and for 3 years I had it was in the Valley, and so we were all part of this quantified self kind of guerrilla movement. And we got going, and for a while I was getting tested once a month with the full blood diagnostic platform, about 250 biomarkers. So I really got to see how my biology worked. And I would take a test and I'd say, all right, if I took this supplement, I wonder what it would do. And by the time I was done 36 months later, I knew my recipe for life. So I get the results back. And first of all, good news, I was because it was a little apprehensive. All 26 were what we call in the green. So that's good. My lowest score, because given us multiple biomarkers, we also want to make it really approachable for the average person. So we do it on a 0 to 100 score because we all grow up being graded 0 to 100, right?
True, true.
And we instantly know what that score means. So in dietary health, I got a 78. And that was my lowest score, and that was in the green.
And
And I
I
had
can
a bunch of
imagine you're a super achiever. So 78 did not sit well with you.
you totally nailed me. I was unhappy. I double clicked and I started looking at, all right, what marker is the offending one within that cluster? But what can I do for it? But then all my other ones went up from there. And my average score across all 26 categories was 92.5. So
Bravo.
phenomenal.
I'm
So
clapping for you.
yeah, but I'm happy because for myself, yes, but I'm also happy because it means that anybody, if they had the right tools, could do that, right? So that was the key point for me there.
As a consumer, I like to call myself a citizen scientist.
Mhm.
My father is
Yeah.
a scientist, but I'm a citizen scientist, and I'm deeply curious about this evolution. And my entire show is founded on the concept of being curious about the cellular, the science of cellular wellness.
Yeah.
So for me, what you're developing is my dream state. Like I would love nothing more than to be able to purchase this disc for under $100, to know more about my cellular health, and then to be able to make informed, deeply personalized decisions about the supplements I take, the sleep I have, the
Hmm.
diet that I follow, the amount of water that I drink. And so I was really invested in that other business being a success. And it was
And it's disappointing when it doesn't
I was
happen,
about to say
right?
it was
Yeah.
hugely disappointing, and
Hmm.
she was a
So
woman.
so going back to your other question though, there's that. So the opportunity is there, right? It's just the market and the scale and everything had to catch up. But on the area that you bring up, which I call consent management. So I used to work at an insurance company. After I sold my company, I went to work for a big traditional insurance company because I wanted to figure out how traditional healthcare worked, and I learned a lot there. But one of the things I did is I ran a consumer platform for about 2 million consumers, and we were really having to deal with data accounts. And so my personal philosophy that I brought over from that experience is that your data should belong to you, and you should have a very robust account or personal health record that actually manages your consents, because data is a really interesting thing for consumers and healthcare orgs. Some data, if you're an org, if you want to contact them or transfer the data for the consumer, you have to get permission every single time. Some data has like every 6 months, you need permission, but otherwise you could just do back and forth. And some of it's evergreen, meaning once you have the permission, you can do consent management with the consumer around their account. So these companies get it's very complex, and there's no commercial software available. But what we have set up in our philosophy is that we're on the consumer side. So when you buy your test, even if, let's say, your employer in the US provides your healthcare, your data belongs to you.
Do you think that
Now,
that's going to be like the biggest part of your marketing pitch? Because I think what you've developed as a scientific um, innovation, everyone wants. Like, I mean,
yeah.
there'd be many people who you'd be hard pressed not to want to know that and help
Well,
yourself.
and it's going to be your cornerstone data, because there's this thing called this movement. It's a huge market. It's called real world data that is coming out. And so if you have cornerstone data, that's data that when it comes in, it almost becomes like the strategic crossroad that activates, in this case, all the other data sets. So let's say that you have been going to a neurology clinic for years, and you have your claims for your insurance. You also have maybe your doctor notes observing you. And then maybe you've had imaging to, check neurological progress. And then all of a sudden, you have dropped in there our proteome metabolome test. It actually shows, all the other data you have is what's been observed or other means, whereas this shows what's actually been happening over time at the molecular level, right? And then you start cross correlating all of those data points, you're going to get this really robust model. And so we're very open source too. So if you have other data scattered around, siloed data is not useful. If you can bring it all together, you get a much better picture. So we're not arrogant enough to believe that our data set's the only one. There's going to be a lot of other useful data sets that, if they're orphans, they're not going to be as useful. But when paired up with ours, supremely useful. So then you get back to the security question, right? Is, boy, I just consolidated all my data. So it's great because it's consolidated, but it's bad because it's consolidated, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to sort that out. And there's a couple things that we're working on that the company's actually worked on for a while. There's a really good, I'd say, crypto blockchain research group at UBC in British Columbia that's been working on this for years. So we actually have we're going to base our consumer account, probably, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but that everybody would have a blockchain account. So there's two things that we all deal with as healthcare consumers. You're thinking, okay, I'm tackling all my health and wellness things, and oh look, I got more in the green here, and I'm able to lift more weights because I'm stronger, or this and that. And then life happens, right? There's always that one landmine or something that periodically hits us, and that's serious illness. And so, in the case of the woman I was just talking about, she had been doing everything right, and she just happened to have a cancer develop, and we detected it at the molecular level. So, on the health and wellness stuff, she works with her health and wellness coach that we tee up, that's trained in our system and all that. But then when something clinical comes up like that, then we have to surface that to her and say, you need to go talk to your primary care doctor, because we also want to enable a really productive conversation